What's up, Mets fans? It's your boy CP, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. It's a little bit of a True Mets Talk day after recap, as well as discussing some of the latest Mets news and notes. Before we fully get into this video, please smash those thumbs up buttons, subscribe to the channel, and also comment your thoughts and opinions down below. We were not available for the post-game stream last night with instant reactions between Rob and myself, but we will be live for the pregame and the postgame ahead of Mets versus Twins game 2 tonight. So make sure to hit on those notifications buttons on the channel as well. It was a very frigid environment, as is expected in mid-April in Minnesota, and it seemed like the umpires, the players, especially Juan Soto, bundling up in the outfield when the camera panned to him in the later stages of the ball game, just wanted to get things over with once the game was a little bit more so out of reach, with the final score being 5-1 in this Mets win. And it took a little bit of time for the Mets offense to get going in this one. Francisco Lindor actually set the tone yet again, as he's been probably the best leadoff hitter in the league in terms of getting on base in his very first at bat to give his team a chance to get the early lead, but they were not able to cash in. The top of the lineup was not able to cash in until the third inning. Anyone want to guess who got things going for the New York Mets? It is Mr. Reliable, Mr. Successful Pete Alonso here in the early stages of 2025. He is absolutely on a roll right now. And if you missed my standalone Pete Alonso video, make sure to go check it out. I will link that in the description down below, talking about why he is definitively the best first baseman in the National League, and he might even be the best first baseman in all of baseball with what he's doing right now offensively and defensively. He goes 2 for 2 in this ball game with 2 walks as well. So it's like a combination of successful hitting as well as a successful approach, which we didn't see last season from Pete Alonso, taking the walks when the opposing pitchers are giving it to him, which is skyrocketing the overall on-base percentage. You see well over 450 there on this season for Pete Alonso. And fast forwarding into the game, in the later stages of the game, sixth inning and beyond, when the Twins were able to tie up the ball game off of Clay Holmes in the fifth inning, Mark Vientos comes up when it's time for the Mets to start hitting, and he has been struggling. We've been talking about Mark Vientos and some of the sophomore struggles, not so much a sophomore slump, but the early sophomore struggles for Mark Vientos and chasing some of those down and away breaking balls, just like Pete Alonso was last season. He finally comes through in what must have felt like a hit that was just long awaited for Mark Vientos, with an extra base hit for an RBI, a go-ahead RBI to give the Mets a 2-1 lead at that point in the game. He actually scores in that same half inning due to a Minnesota Twins error to make it 3-1. And then for added insurance, Juan Soto comes up to the plate and delivers a 2-run home run, which must have felt tremendously good for him as well, because he was in a little bit of a dry spell in terms of the home run ball, not having a home run since that opening series in Houston. So that must have felt extremely good for Juan Soto. And a lot of people have been just chattering on social media about Juan Soto. He is taking a little bit of uncomfortable at bats, but of course, people are going to start talking when you're getting paid that much, whether it's deserving or not. I think Juan Soto is going to figure it out. I would bet my bottom dollar, and I would think that Steve Cohen's betting all of his bottom dollars there on Juan Soto figuring out, given he's going to be a New York Met for the next 15 years. So that is awesome to see him get going, and hopefully he continues that success, as I know he will. It seems like the top 3 of the lineup are really starting to figure it out, even though that there's some runners in scoring position situational, I guess, problems at this point. I think the Mets are on their way to figuring out a little bit of a more consistent offense. And the one guy that we really need to talk about in this game as well, and he was actually my player of the game, if you go to the community tab of my channel and look at the graphic that I posted last night, Luisangel Acuña is buying himself a lot more playing time, and we'll actually discuss that here in just a second. But he gets another base knock, actually 2 base hits yesterday, and that is now 6 hits in the last 4 games for Luisangel Acuña. He is seeing the ball very well. He's having a little bit of a more balanced approach, not so much of a long swing that we saw in the early goings of this season, and he's starting to figure it out. Now, from the pitching side of things, the pitching gets it done. Clay Holmes is able to get into the 5th inning inning and complete the fifth inning with 8 strikeouts, 1 earned run given up, and 2 hits allowed to the Minnesota Twins. He was dealing in the first 4 innings, and then he decided to walk a couple of batters, which got him into some deep trouble, but he was able to limit the damage. He gave it off. He gave the ball off to Huascar Brazaban, who has been doing tremendous things, posting zeros left and right. He goes another multi-inning outing with no earned runs given up, 1 strikeout, and no hits for Huascar Brazaban. Reed Garrett continues his dominance with the same kind of performance. No earned runs, 2 strikeouts, and 0 hits. And again, this Mets bullpen has been holding things down, even when some of the starters who have been holding up their end of the bargain for sure, as we'll talk about here in just a second, and you see the total team numbers down below in this graphic, the Mets bullpen has come in and just done an extremely fine job. I mean, you're talking about 4 innings of one-hit baseball last night against the Minnesota Twins for this Mets bullpen between Brazaban, Garrett, and Ryan Stanek, who was able to close out the ball game in that last inning of work. They have been absolutely tremendous, and that has contributed to that 1.82 pen ERA that ranks third in all of baseball right now. And conversely, the Mets rotation, even given some of the lack of innings, because in the total innings department, they're ranked 21st in the entirety of the MLB. So not much sample size, or not as much sample size as maybe the bullpen in comparison to the rest of the league. But the starter ERA for the New York Mets is at an even 2.50, which also ranks first, or not also, it ranks first, I should say, in the entirety of the MLB. Walks and hits per innings pitched between the Mets starters and bullpen collectively as a unit is ranked 8th, which is pretty good. Always good to be in the top 10. And batting average against is ranking 6th in the entirety of the MLB for the Mets pitching staff collectively. So this is tremendous production and tremendous output from the bullpen and the starters. And the bullpen, this was expected, from, especially in the offseason discussions and some of the signings, adding AJ Minter, knowing that a good core of this bullpen was coming back that had some pretty good success down the stretch of last season. But the starters were the big talking point. And I think that a lot of Mets fans are now realizing, just let David Stearns go to work and let him do what he does, because I understand that we're only 16 games into this 2025 season, but they have been producing better than anyone could have expected. And I wasn't the one to hit the panic button in the offseason. I know a lot of Mets fans were doing that. I was slightly concerned, but I was willing to see how it was going to play out. Now, there's a lot of games left to be played, and I'm not saying there isn't, but so far, so good for this Mets rotation. Now, getting back into this discussion of Luisangel Acuña, for the first time in 2025, playing time is tipping toward Luisangel Acuña at the hands of Carlos Mendoza, says Tim Healy. Carlos Mendoza said that he will start tonight in Game 2 versus the righty that the Minnesota Twins have got going. And up until this point, it's been a platoon, mostly against right-handed pitching. You've seen Brett Beatty, as they are both still on this roster, awaiting a decision on either of these players as Jeff McNeil comes back. But he's earned it, says Carlos Mendoza. As I said, a 4-game hit streak and 6 total hits for Luisangel Acuña in the last 4 games is definitely, a sign of great things to come and a little bit more consistent success that we have not seen thus far out of Brett Beatty. So the story on Acuña's phenomenal night last night. Again, he earned the player of the game with a multi-hit game, 2 runs scored, and he just looks good. A stolen base to add to that, and the speed that he gives the New York Mets, whether he's starting or whether he's coming off the bench, is going to play a big role in the Mets' decision to keep him on this roster or not. And that is in part due to the unfortunate news that the Mets got early yesterday about Jose Siri. He went in for an MRI. As we all know, in Saturday's ball game against the A's, he came out of the ball game with what they called at the time a shin contusion. He went for an MRI after things still weren't really feeling good a couple days later, and the MRI revealed that he has a fractured tibia, and he is going to be placed on the IL for the foreseeable future. We're talking about 3 to 4 months without Jose Siri and his speed and defense in center field at this point. Tyrone Taylor's going to be able to take over, but who do the Mets rely on? Again, as Tyrone Taylor really isn't supposed to be an everyday starter, as a maybe secondary platoon player? Are they going to give the young guy in Luisangel Acuña a chance to be a center fielder at times in this season? Or are they going to bring up more of a veteran presence like a guy like Jose Azocar that we saw in spring training and was able to make his way, clear waivers, and make his way back into this Mets organization? That is the big storyline, and that potentially changes a lot of things for the Mets in their decision making between Brett Baty and Luisangel Acuña when the rest of this roster, the reinforcements such as Jeff McNeil and Francisco Alvarez, get back. But this is the updated NL East standings look through the first 16 games. The Mets are up with an 11-5 record. They are first in the NL East as of right now. The Phillies, who have been on a little bit of a slide at 9-7 after a very hot start to their season, are 2 games back, followed by Miami, Washington, and Atlanta, who continues to struggle, although they did pull out a victory against the Toronto Blue Jays last night in that series as well. So, Mets fans, let me know what you're thinking about this team. You know, the good times, let the good times roll. The Mets are 11-5. It seems like, you know, it hasn't been the cleanest of baseball. And I think that's what a lot of Mets fans are kind of still clinging on to. But at the end of the day, an 11-5 record, when we can objectively state, especially from the offensive side of things, that they have not been clicking on all cylinders as of yet, although we've been seeing continuous progress and good signs, it's an even better sign of better things to come. So, as always, Mets fans, this is the True Mets Talk Day After recap. Again, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you all later tonight with the pregame and postgame show. Peace.